Welcome to Serious Sevens. On this channel, we count down anything and everything. If you like our channel and videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. Today on Serious Sevens, we are counting down the top 7 cursed items in the world today. Coming in at number 7 is the Dark Mirror. After being purchased at a psychic fair in Columbus by an anonymous buyer, the owner couldn't wait to bestow this particular mirror onto someone else. Before he sold the mirror, he reported that the mirror seemed to feed off of energy and show only the fears of the person who was unlucky enough to gaze into the mirror. Now housed at the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult, visitors say they see horrifying images in the mirror. Some have claimed to see their reflection smirk, wink, and frown at them, while others say the mirror has shown them aging. The most terrible of the claims, however, is the guests that say the mirror has shown them their own corpses. Next on our countdown, this numerical nightmare comes in at number 6. The number 359-888-888-888. After being issued in the early 2000s in Bulgaria, only death has followed those who have had it. The first known owner, a 48-year-old Bulgarian CEO, died of cancer. We all know that cancer is a horrible disease that kills many people every year. If you are ready to write this off as a coincidence, let's go on. The next owner of the number, a mob boss, was gunned down. The last owner, an estate agent, was also gunned down while he was in possession of the number. All 3 of these deaths took place within 4 years of one another. To try and deter all of the rumors, the telephone company has since suspended the number and refuses to state why. Rolling in at number 5, we have the Bassano vase. It is said that by removing the lid of this particular vase, you become the target of serial killers. This silver vase, which was originally made in the 15th century, was given to a bride on the eve of her wedding. Before she could get married, however, she was murdered and found with the vase in her hands. From that moment on, the vase was passed down in her family, only for the owner to meet their maker soon after gaining ownership. The family ended up boxing up the vase and never opening it again. Somehow, though, in 1988, the vase was found with the note, "Beware, this vase brings death." Talk about the ultimate deterrent. After being unearthed, the vase went to auction without the note. After being bought by an anonymous buyer, the owner died within 3 months of possessing it. Since then, there has been 3 other deaths connected to the vase. Soon after, a group of warehouse agents took the vase away, and it hasn't been seen since. Coming in at number 4, we have the Thomas Busby chair. Thomas Busby's stoop chair, or otherwise known as the Chair of Death, belonged to the murderer named Thomas Busby, who lived in North Yorkshire in the late 1600s. As the story goes, Busby married Elizabeth, the daughter of Daniel Awoody, a petty, small-time crook. For reasons that are forever lost in time, Daniel decided to remove his daughter from Busby's home. When a drunken Busby returned home, he found Daniel in his favorite chair. Needless to say, he was livid. After learning Daniel's true intentions, Busby threw Daniel out. Unfortunately, this did not calm down the enraged Busby. He grabbed a hammer, went over to Daniel's residence, and bludgeoned him to death. Busby then hid the body in the woods. It didn't take long for suspicious townspeople to locate the body and arrest Busby. In 1702, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his death, Busby cursed his beloved chair before being hung. According to legend, Busby's chair is responsible for an estimated 60 deaths. The first death is of a chimney sweep who was found hung. Over the years, the chair found its way to a pub. In 1960, 2 airmen were overheard daring each other to sit in the chair. After both of the airmen sat in the chair, they died in a car crash on the way to the hospital. In one case, a woman was diagnosed with a tumor after merely bumping into the chair. In 1978, the chair was donated to the Thirsk Museum. If you decide to visit the museum, there is no way you can be tempted to sit in the chair. It has been suspended 6 feet in the air where no one can touch it, for good reason. At number 3, we have the tomb of King Tutankhamun. King Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut, was the youngest pharaoh to rule ancient Egypt. His reign didn't last long, however, as he died at the age of 19. On November 29th, 1922, the tomb of King Tutankhamun was opened by Howard Carter and an excavation team. It is said that anyone who dares enter the tomb is struck with bad luck, illness, or death. Howard Carter and many of the excavation team died under mysterious circumstances. The first victim was the financial backer of the expedition, Lord Carnarvon. He died 4 months after being in the tomb because of an infected mosquito bite. Soon after, the X-ray technician who X-rayed King Tut also died, along with as many as 10 others. The way the 10 people met their demise ranged from being shot, poisoned, or to committing suicide, all within months of visiting the tomb. Even if you are a skeptic, if you are to visit Egypt, it may be a good idea to stay clear of King Tut's tomb. Next on our list is a doll you don't want to mess with. He is spiteful, deadly, and very possessive. Rolling in at number 2, Robert the Doll. Originally made in a company in Germany, this doll was brought and given to a boy named Robert Eugene Otto by his grandfather in 1906. Robert was a member of a prominent family that lived in Key West, Florida. While some children do become very preoccupied playing with their toys, it was evident early on by Robert's mother that he was infatuated with the doll. One day while Robert was playing with the doll, he told his mother, "Call me Jean." When she asked him why, he simply replied, "Because Robert said so." Not long after this, strange things began happening around the house. Shadows seemed to appear out of nowhere, and the family would hear footsteps while everyone was in bed. Not long after, Jean, that's what we're going to call the little boy, began to blame Robert for broken furniture and broken glasses. Once the family decided to move to France, the mother had seen enough. She made sure that Robert was left behind, and he was put in a box in the attic which was nailed shut. Years later, Jean would return to his childhood home with his wife, and he found Robert in the box in the attic. Jean, now an adult, began to play with the doll and even started carrying it around the house. He even went as far as to build Robert a room complete with a bed, a table, and chairs. While Jean's wife thought her husband was beginning to lose his mind, Jean insisted it was Robert manipulating them all, and he was just trying to make Robert happy. He even informed her that Robert was now the man of the house. Years later, Jean's wife would find him in the attic dead. That may be creepy in itself, but the wife claimed that she found him on the attic floor with Robert sitting on his chest and his small hands wrapped around Jean's throat. Soon after, Jean's wife moved back to France and put the house up for lease. In the lease, she stipulated that Robert was the sole occupant of the attic. Eventually, someone did lease the home, but it didn't take long for the strange events to plague the new couple. Shortly after moving in, the owners claimed to find Robert on the kitchen table, sitting on a knife. Not taking any chances, they took Robert to the Fort East Martello Museum, where he remains to this day. If you think this was the end of Robert's havoc, you would be wrong. Every year, hundreds of customers pay to see and photograph Robert. According to the curator of the museum, it's not wise to take a picture of Robert without his permission. In fact, there are hundreds of letters, some handwritten, of customers writing to Robert apologizing to him. It is said that they want him to remove curses they believe he placed on them while in his presence. Many of the letters state that ever since they met Robert, their lives have been turned upside down. Some have gone bankrupt, some have even died. On one last note, Robert is the inspiration behind the Child's Play movies. Now this is one bad doll, but it doesn't quite make it to the top of our list. Finally, we have arrived at number 1. This cursed item is the king, or should I say queen, of cursed items. Many of you probably saw this coming. At number 1, we have none other than Annabelle the Raggedy Ann doll. Originally discovered in an antique shop in 1970, a woman purchased the doll for her daughter, Donna, who was a nursing student. Donna lived with her roommate, and immediately upon bringing the doll home, strange things started to occur. Donna claimed that Annabelle would appear in rooms that she had not left her, and on more than one occasion she had seen Annabelle standing on its legs without being supported. Soon after, the strange notes started appearing around the apartment. The notes read, "Help us." What was even stranger was the fact that the notes were on parchment paper, which was not in the apartment. One day, Donna came home and found drops of blood on Annabelle's hands and dress. She had seen enough. Hiring a medium to get the real story on the doll, the medium told Donna and her roommate that the doll was inhabited by the soul of a little girl that was murdered. Her name was Annabelle. The medium informed them that the little girl just wanted to be loved. Feeling sympathy for the girl, the women decided to keep the doll. Big mistake. But as you may have guessed it, things did not get better. When Lou, a male friend, came to visit, he immediately got a horrible sense of fear about the doll. After a few days of feeling out of place and feeling as if he was being followed, the height of Annabelle's rage was about to come into fruition. While asleep one night, Lou claims to be in a state of sleep paralysis, and he watched as Annabelle came in the room and began choking him. After blacking out, he finally awoke the next morning. On another encounter, Lou came to the apartment and heard rustling from Donna's room. Thinking someone had broken in, he went in the room only to find Annabelle on the floor. Feeling a sense of dread and thinking someone was behind him, he quickly turned around, only to be scratched 6 times on the chest by an unknown force. The scratches started to bleed, but what was even odder about this entire situation was as quickly as they formed, they seemed to heal. They were almost completely gone by the next morning. When he informed Donna of this, she had had enough. Wanting to contact the church, she was referred to Ed and Lorraine Warren, 2 very famous paranormal investigators. After observing the doll and getting the help of a psychic, they informed Donna and her friends that the doll had not been possessed by a little girl at all, but in fact, the doll was possessed by a demon. They also informed the friends that the demon didn't want to stay in the doll at all. It was just waiting to possess a human. Donna decides that it will be best to give the doll to the Warrens, who decided to take it with them. On the way home, though, Ed and Lorraine almost got in an accident as the car began to swerve and the brakes seemed to be going out. After saying the Lord's Prayer and throwing holy water on the doll, all of the occurrences stopped. The Warrens took the doll to their occult museum and placed it in a glass cabinet where it remains today. Just because this particular doll is in a glass cabinet, you would think she would no longer be a harm to anyone. Well, you would be wrong. One of the most famous stories is of a young man and his girlfriend who came to see Annabelle. It is reported that the young man began tapping on the glass, demanding that Annabelle scratch him. Seeing this behavior, Ed immediately threw him out. Upon leaving, the two were involved in a head-on collision where they crashed into a tree. The man died and his girlfriend was hospitalized for a year. The moral of the story? Don't mess with Annabelle. One last tidbit. Annabelle is the doll that is talked about in the Conjuring universe, being the inspiration in the movies Annabelle, Annabelle Creation, and Annabelle Comes Home. So what do you think of the countdown? If you like what you saw and heard, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.